They called it a peace accord. Funny how that word, peace, always comes after your home's been flattened, your cities burned, and your people forced to their knees. For Earth, it was less an accord and more a collar. The galactic powers, those shiny bastards from every corner of the stars, wrote the terms, handed them down like commandments, and expected us to say thank you. We were nothing but another name in their long list of conquests, another emerging species they welcomed with fake smiles, gave us a seat at their council table, way in the back, of course, and then stripped us of everything that made us dangerous, our weapons, dismantled, our fleets, decommissioned, our industries, monitored like we were children playing with fire. And when we spoke up, asked for fairness, they laughed. Literally laughed. I remember that day clear as blood on white snow. I was sitting in a backroom chamber on Orin 7, wearing this stiff gray robe they made humans wear. Symbol of humility, they said. I called it what it was. Shame. We were summoned by the Zarnathi delegate. Tall creature, long head like a dagger, voice like crushed glass. He said, "Humans, your aggression is unbecoming of a council race. Perhaps we were mistaken about your potential." And I stood. I looked him in the eyes. "You want to see our potential? Then stop putting boots on our necks." Everyone in the room froze. Dead silent. You could hear a plasma vent whistling somewhere far off. He smirked. Another threat? How predictable. They saw us as predictable, violent, emotional, primitive. They thought because we lost a few wars and bowed to their system, we'd broken. What they didn't understand was this. Humans don't break. We bend, we bleed, we crawl through hell, and then we get back up. Every damn time. After that meeting, they passed a new motion. More restrictions on Earth. Our last orbital shipyards were to be shut down. All interstellar trade suspended for compliance reviews. No food imports, no medicine. They wanted to starve us into silence. They didn't know we'd been preparing for this since the first treaty was signed. Quietly, patiently, in the dark. On Mars, under the old dust domes, our engineers built what the Council never thought we could. Stealth drives, pulse weapons, AI warframes banned by galactic law. On Titan, deep under methane lakes, soldiers trained in zero-gravity assault. And on Earth, we suffered. But we learned. We watched. We waited. The day their enforcers came to dismantle the last human shipyard in orbit, they found it empty. Not abandoned. Evacuated. Then those shipyards turned toward them, opened fire, and ripped their cruisers apart with tech they never thought we could develop. That was day one. I was on the ground, coordinating the relays from an old bunker in the Himalayas. My name? Doesn't matter. Names die in war, but they'll remember what I did. The comms came alive as the first wave of retaliation hit us. A full galactic strike force descending like vultures. Cities evaporated, millions gone in minutes. And yet we didn't flinch. For every city they scorched, we answered with silence, until the time was right. Then we spoke, not with words, with fire. Our sleeper fleets rose from the dark side of moons. Our drones slipped out of asteroid fields like ghosts. And the first real message we sent them? Burned into the side of their flagship by a nuclear filament beam. You wanted to see our limits? Here they come. And that was just the beginning. The first real retaliation, the real one, not that opening slap from the shipyards, was carried out by a man named Ronan Greaves, former Earth Space Navy, dishonorably discharged when the Treaty of Sol was signed. They branded him unstable, unfit, too aggressive for diplomacy. What they meant was, too human. He never stopped fighting, didn't care about orders or politics. When Earth got muzzled, Ronan disappeared. Some said he vanished into deep space, others said he was dead. Both were wrong. He'd been busy, turning every dirty contact, every exiled engineer, every fringe scientist into a weapon of war. Ronan's fleet was called the Hollow Fangs. 6 ships, barely held together by raw hatred and black market tech. No official insignia, no flags, just matte black hulls and silent drives, ghosts with teeth. They struck the Kalthari outpost on Dras 4 first, strategic point, key hub in the Galactic supply line. The Kalthari never even saw it coming. No warning, no demand, just lights going out and ships falling from the sky. Ronan transmitted only one thing before leaving orbit. For Earth. It wasn't just about military targets. Ronan, and men like him, knew the galactic powers would expect tactical moves, clean wars, strategic strikes, but we weren't playing by their rules anymore. You crush a people long enough, take away their dignity, their home, their right to breathe freely. Eventually, they stop caring about playing nice. We weren't looking for victory. We were looking to make them feel it. All of it. In response, the Galactic Tribunal issued Protocol Black, a planetary lockdown of Earth. No travel, no communication, no imports or exports. Total isolation. Like we were diseased, contained, controlled. But that was the final miscalculation. They still didn't get it. They thought we were scattered, weak. They didn't know about the ARC protocol. Years ago, before the treaties, before the kneeling, Earth's top defense minds created contingency code, ARC protocol, hidden caches, deep system satellites, drone relays, off-world colonies untouched by galactic eyes. Everything buried beneath layers of false coordinates and ghost data. Every child taught the truth beneath school floors. Every mechanic who looked like they fixed farming bots really soldered war machines with hands that never forgot the grip of real firepower. I was stationed at Bastion Echo, one of the ARC sites buried deep in Antarctica, beneath sheets of ice thick enough to block any scanner. We weren't scientists. We were the ones who held the keys. The ones who swore that when the day came, we'd open the vault. When the transmission from Ronan hit us, it was like a pulse through the bloodstream. Silent bunkers lit up. Weapons unsealed. Cryo-sleep soldiers thawed out one by one. Old warriors who never got to finish their fight woke up with shaking fists and fire in their veins. They told us to wait, to build, to endure. But now they told us one word. Go. I remember walking through that metal corridor, frost clinging to the bulkheads, as the war sirens echoed for the first time in decades. It wasn't fear I felt. It was something deeper. Like every step was part of a reckoning centuries overdue. I wasn't a general. I wasn't even high-ranking. Just another man carrying a rifle and a grudge. Our mission was simple. Intercept the Dominion archive on the moons of Kepri, held by the Zalori. A data vault filled with Earth's suppressed history, classified research, even original human AI models the Council had erased. They thought we'd forget what they took. We never did. We moved in stealth, a fleet of 15 ARC ships, retrofitted with scavenged tech and weapons outlawed in every civilized system. But war isn't for the civilized. It's for the ones who've been kicked enough to finally bite back. We breached Kepri's outer defense net using a zero-sound EMP array, fried their comms. Then came the drop. Gravity rigs launched us straight through the atmosphere, pure, vertical descent. You've never known terror until you're falling toward an alien world at terminal velocity, hoping your burn dampeners don't glitch. We hit the ground like thunder. The Zalori were fast to react, but not fast enough. We didn't move like soldiers. We moved like ghosts. Every squad hitting a key point, melting into their defenses, slicing through code walls and organic barricades like they were wet paper. Inside the archive, I saw it. The real history. Not the sanitized version the Council fed us. documents showing how Earth's aggression was provoked, how early human diplomats were set up, how our leaders were assassinated under the guise of accidents. The Council feared us from day one, not because we were monsters, but because we weren't, because we felt, because we cared, because in a galaxy of sterile logic and emotionless power, we were chaos with purpose. We uploaded it all to the Phoenix Net, an ARC transmission system designed to flood galactic channels with truth. Once that data was live, every planet, every species, every single being that ever doubted Earth saw it. That was when everything changed. No more hiding, no more whispers. Ronan hit the Dominion's military core in a suicide run, destroying 3 super destroyers and 1 planetary cannon. The Holofangs were wiped out, but the damage was done. Across the stars, whispers became roars. Rebellion, uprising, systems that had quietly resented the galactic powers began to question. Some even defected. Others burned their council flags and raised Earth's old banner instead. The galactic powers called us terrorists, extremists. But they were too late. We were already legend. Still, we paid. The retaliation came fast. The orbital bombardment of London, the acid storms over Rio, lasers cutting through children's shelters in Nairobi. They didn't just want to crush us. They wanted to erase us. I lost my brother during the Tokyo evacuation. He was on the last dropship when a Jarnathi fighter clipped the engine mid-lift. I watched it fall. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just picked up my rifle and walked back into the bunker. We stopped waiting for peace. And we stopped sending warnings. Now, we only send one message, burned into every ship hull, carved into every drone's kill switch, etched into every bullet we fire. You wanted to see our limits? Here they come. They underestimated Earth. But worse than that, they forgot what happens when you give a man nothing left to lose. They always told us war was a game of strategy, of moves and countermoves, politics wrapped in blood. But we weren't playing a game anymore. We were the error in their system, the virus that learned, adapted, and then bit back with vengeance sharp enough to shred through stars. After the Kepri archive breach and the Phoenix Net transmission, Earth's truth was out. It couldn't be buried anymore. The galactic powers panicked. They called it data terrorism. They blamed everything on a rogue faction of humans they refused to acknowledge as legitimate. But the galaxy wasn't buying it. On the fringes, where the Council's grip was weakest, alliances began to crack. Small systems started defecting. Trade convoys rerouted to supply human colonies. Even some mercenary fleets switched sides, chasing something rare, belief in a cause instead of credits. But with every gain, we paid a price in blood. After Kepri, my unit, Strike Force Black Ember, was redeployed to the Eroth Belt. 7 planets under heavy Council influence. The Eroth weren't strong, but they were fanatically loyal to the Dominion. They ran prisons, re-education camps, and rumor had it one of Earth's earliest rebel leaders was still alive in one of their vaults. His name was Commander Thorn. First human to defy a council mandate openly, captured nearly 2 decades ago, tortured, erased from the records, but not from ours. We were told it was a recon mission, simple intel extraction. But deep down, we all knew what it really was, a suicide run. Our dropship hit the outer atmosphere of Eroth Prime under full cloak. Black Ember had 10 men, all handpicked, all ghosts, men with nothing left to live for but the kill count and the mission. We landed in the old mining zones, far from the city centers. The place was dust and bones, diggers, slaves, bodies half buried in slag. The prison complex sat like a tumor on the horizon. Thick metal walls, pulsating shield fields, auto turrets every 20 meters. Inside were thousands of detainees, most of them political enemies, rebels, even children from colonies that questioned council laws. We moved under silence protocols, using the abandoned tunnel systems once used for ore runs. Narrow spaces, air thick with rust and rot. Each step took us deeper into hell. Halfway through, we hit a patrol, 3 Eroth guards, long-necked reptilian freaks with no facial expressions. One turned and spotted us. Too late. My blade sank into its throat, warm blue blood spraying like vapor. The others didn't even get to scream. That's when I realized something had changed in us. Before, in the early days, we hesitated, still clung to some belief in right and wrong. But now, we were predators. We didn't blink, didn't ask if it was necessary, we just killed. Quiet, efficient, like death was our second nature. We breached the central core by midnight cycle. Thorn was alive. Barely. They'd kept him in a zero-light sensory pod, fed intravenously, body atrophied to bone and sinew. He didn't speak at first. Just blinked, slow and hollow, like he wasn't sure if we were real. Then he saw the patch on my shoulder, Earth's fractured eagle symbol. He smiled, teeth cracked, lips torn, but it was a smile. "Still fighting?" he croaked. "No," I said. "Now we're hunting." We carried him out on our backs, fighting through hallways lit with gunfire and alien screams. We lost 3 men before we reached the surface. The last one, Cole, blew himself up to take out a pursuit craft. His final words were simple. "Don't stop." We never did. We got Thorn to the Ark medical base orbiting Europa. Within weeks, the legend returned. Broken body, still healing, but mind sharp as ever. When he addressed the remaining Earth forces, it wasn't with grandeur or hollow speeches. It was a whisper on the wind, passed through encrypted channels and bloodied hands. "We don't want their seat at the table. We want to burn the table down." And so we did. The war changed. No more stealth, no more selective hits. Now it was open war. Cities on both sides lit up like dying stars. Council fleets turned to dust in orbit. Human colonies, once hidden, opened fire with ancient weapons they'd hidden beneath gardens and schoolhouses. They thought they'd erased our fire. They had only buried the embers. Meanwhile, the Galactic Tribunal declared Earth a Class Z threat, unfit for negotiation. They authorized full-scale eradication. They called us a viral anomaly. So we became one. On the diplomatic moon of Velhar, a human mercenary named Dren Vero hacked into the Tribunal's neural relay and broadcast every classified war crime the Council had committed, not just against Earth, but dozens of weaker species across the galaxy. Forced sterilizations, mass disappearances, mind-wipe protocols, cultural annihilation. And at the end of the stream, his last words burned across every screen. "You feared our emotions, now drown in them." They executed Dren by ripping his neural core out, said it was justice, but by then, too late. The fire had spread. I remember the Battle of Krython's Reach like it was yesterday. Human forces, backed by rebel fleets from 3 former Council systems, engaged a Dominion armada 10 times our size. They expected us to run, to scatter, to beg. Instead, we charged. I flew Strike Wing Serpent 9, a retrofitted bomber held together with prayers and duct tape. My co-pilot was Cal, 6'3", 300 pounds of sarcasm and suppressed rage. As we dove into enemy fire, he laughed. "They thought we were extinct, brother." "No," I said. "They just stopped reading the warnings." We lost hundreds of ships that day, thousands of lives. But we took the Dominion's flagship with us, rammed it with a fusion core that detonated their entire fleet command. It was the first time the galactic powers had tasted real defeat on their own terms. And it wouldn't be the last. Earth was no longer the backwater planet they sneered at. We weren't the caged dogs growling behind diplomatic bars. We were wolves now. And wolves remember who threw the stones. Back on Earth, under the shattered skyline of what used to be Berlin, a boy no older than 12 picked up his father's old rifle. His village had been wiped out by a drone strike. He painted the words, "Forgive nothing," on the barrel. That image went viral across the rebel net. It wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a movement, a reckoning, and behind every strike, every rebellion, every explosion tearing through a council world was that same message. You wanted to see our limits? Here they come! There's something quiet about space that can drive a man mad. It isn't the silence, exactly. It's the way it echoes your thoughts back at you. Louder, clearer, unforgiving. After Krython's reach, we didn't celebrate. We couldn't. We'd won, sure, but the cost? Too steep. Too bloody. Ships didn't return. Names on the roster were replaced with static. My co-pilot, Cal, never made it out of the wreckage. Last I saw him, he was slumped in the gunner's seat, half his chest missing, still grinning through blood. I dragged his body from the flames and buried him on an asteroid with no name. No ceremony. Just a quiet moment. One man saying goodbye to another the only way we knew how. By loading his name into the war logs and vowing revenge. We all had lists now. Names burned into our skulls. Lists of the dead. Lists of the fallen. And lists of who would pay. The next mission came quicker than expected. We barely had time to breathe before the orders hit. This one came from Thorn directly. He'd regained command, barely walking on his own, but with fire burning so bright in his eyes it made grown men stand straighter just by being near him. The target was Elgaron, a galactic communications relay world. Think of it like the central nervous system for the Dominion's fleet. You take out Elgaron, you don't just silence them. You blind them. No commands, no updates, no reinforcements, just chaos. But it wasn't just about tactics anymore. Elgaron also hosted the Vox Spire, home to their propaganda AI, Tethri 1. That machine had spent years rewriting Earth's image to the galaxy, called us monsters, savages, disease. It was the voice that made the universe fear us. We were going to cut its tongue out. Black Ember was reduced now. From 10, we were down to 4. Me. Reeks, ex-con and demolitions expert with more scars than skin. Linux, former colony guard turned sniper, lost his whole family in the Johannesburg incineration. And Bishop, our new tech specialist, too young, too smart, too angry. We dropped into Elgaron during their Unity Cycle festival, some stupid celebration of galactic harmony. The irony wasn't lost on us. The city gleamed, towers of silver and glass, hover trains gliding silently over sky rails, alien laughter in the streets. It made me sick. They lived like kings while Earth bled in dust and fire. We moved through the underlevels, breathing recycled air thick with coolant fumes and the stench of corporate decay. The spire loomed above us, impossible to miss, glowing like a god in metal form. Bishop hacked the outer gates. Took him 90 seconds. I watched his hands tremble as he worked, jaw clenched tight. You good? I asked. He nodded without looking up. Yeah, just thinking about my sister. She used to listen to Tethri broadcasts. She thought we were the villains. She know better now? She's dead now. That was all he said. We breached the spire's first level with flash charges. Guards melted under suppressive fire. Linux took one in the leg, kept moving, didn't flinch. Reeks laid charges along the support beams. He wasn't just here to take out the AI. He wanted the whole damn tower to fall. We reached the core chamber, and there it was, Tethri 1. A swirling sphere of light and data suspended in magnetic fields. No body, no face, just a voice. "You have made a mistake," it said. Calm, soothing, disgusting. "Violence only begets suffering." "Good," I said. "Then let's make sure you suffer." But we weren't done. Reeks gave the signal, explosives planted. We ran. The spire exploded behind us, glass, metal, and data fire raining from the sky. The crowd above ground screamed. Panic spread. Perfect! Just the kind of message we wanted to send. We didn't escape unscathed. A Dominion gunship caught our trail during evac. Opened fire. Reeks was hit. Bad. Chest torn open. Linux dragged him into the shuttle as we lifted off. Reeks bleeding all over the floor, still cracking jokes through dying breaths. "Tell Thorn, I blew it real pretty." Then he was gone. 2 down, 2 left. Back in orbit, Command didn't praise us. There was no time. The attack on Elgaron had worked, too well. The Dominion was enraged, blinded, humiliated, and when that happens to tyrants, they don't get cautious. They get cruel. They retaliated. Earth's last free capital, Svalin City, was hit with a neutron barrage. Wiped off the map. No warning, no survivors. Men, women, children. Gone. I watched the satellite footage, the blast, the ash cloud. I didn't speak for an hour. Neither did Linux. When he finally did, he said, "Let's go find out how far we can really go." And that became our rallying cry. Humanity was done waiting. Thorn ordered Operation Final Veil, the plan to breach the inner Dominion core, their cradle world, the place their Council of Elders ruled from. It was considered untouchable, sacred, fortified with layers of defense thicker than planetary crust. Didn't matter. We were going in. Strike teams across the galaxy coordinated under Thorn's new command, the Broken Banner. No uniforms, no ranks, just survivors, fighters. Every ship, every man, every colony gave what they could. I was tapped to lead one of the main breach squads, not because I was the best, but because I was still alive. We trained in vacuum domes, simulated their world's gravity, atmosphere, terrain. We rehearsed death like it was routine, and when launch day came, we didn't feel brave. We felt ready. I looked at the men and women beside me, faces hollowed by grief, hardened by war. Some carried photos in their vests, others wore dog tags of the fallen. I carried a strip of Cal's bomber seat, charred, bent, reminded me why I kept going. Our dropship launched in silence. No grand speeches, no farewell waves. Just this, a single message sent from Thorn to the entire Dominion, across every channel, loud and clear. "You wanted to see our limits? You're about to choke on them." The jump to the Dominion's cradle world was brutal. We used a rift fold. Unstable tech even our engineers didn't fully trust. The kind of warp drive that fried nav systems and gave most men nosebleeds and night terrors. But it cut time in half. Risk or not, we needed it. They called the target planet Selvarian. Beautiful place by all accounts. Golden skies, floating crystal spires, oceans that glowed under moonlight. Every inch of it artificial, sculpted, clean, untouched by the suffering they inflicted across the rest of the galaxy. That's where their Council of Elders hid. 10 beings who ruled through fear and order. Most species called them divine. We called them something else. Cowards. Our mission wasn't just to breach the surface. We were to enter the Heart Spire, their central seat of power, and trigger the Nemesis drive. A fail-safe code embedded in Dominion tech years ago by one of our early double agents. It would fry their AI grid, shut down military coordination, and give us the opening for full invasion. Simple on paper, impossible in reality. The world was wrapped in orbital mines, defense satellites, thermal scanners, and planetary shields. But we'd found a hole, thanks to Linux. He'd studied Dominion shielding architecture in silence for months, never said a word until 2 days before launch. Then he handed Thorne a datapad and said, "I found the crack." A waste disposal shaft buried under a transport station outside the capital, so old and forgotten they probably didn't even remember it was there. We slipped through during their moon alignment, when most of their power redirected to solar grid maintenance. Our ship skated through the minefield on silent drive, drifting like debris. We landed outside the shaft and made our descent. Darkness closed in fast. No lights, no sounds, just the faint drip of ancient coolant leaking from rusted valves. The team was 10 strong. Veterans, survivors, ghosts. Each one had lost someone. Each one had vowed that this mission would be their last, one way or another. As we crawled through narrow vents, shoulders brushing metal, every breath hot and heavy, I found myself thinking of Earth. Not the war-torn ruins, but the Earth I remembered. Before the treaties, before the council, the smell of rain on cracked sidewalks, the sound of an old truck sputtering to life. A girl I once loved who said I should have been a poet, not a soldier. I never even told her goodbye. We hit the inner chambers of the Heart Spire by nightfall. The structure towered above us, metal fused with alien bone, alive with pulsing energy. It wasn't just a building, it breathed. Dominion guards patrolled the perimeter, tall, plated brutes with silver armor and energy halberds. Linux took the first one down with a spine shot. The sound was like meat hitting stone. We moved fast, clean, quiet, surgical, until we weren't. Halfway through the southern corridor, one of our own, Jarek, tripped a latent scanner. The alarms didn't blare. The Dominion didn't scream. They just came. Dozens of them. They moved like one body, no shouts, no panic, just silent death. We responded with everything we had. Pulse rifles, sonic grenades, magnetic shivs. The hallway lit up with fire and blood. Jarek was the first to fall, then Nalo, then Vecht. Each death was a crack in our shield, but we didn't stop. We pushed forward. We had to. Linux took a round to the gut, protecting me from a railgun burst. I dragged him into cover. He looked up at me, pale and shaking. "Don't stop," he said. Same words Reeks had whispered. I nodded, gritted my teeth, and ran. We reached the core, a swirling mass of Dominion code, machinery, and thought. The Nemesis drive interface was buried beneath layers of encryption. Bishop plugged in. His hands moved like lightning, but his face was pale. "They've updated the grid," he said. "It's fighting me." "You can beat it." "I can slow it, but I can't stop it from tracing us." That meant one thing. Someone had to stay behind. I looked at Bishop. Too young, still had fire left, so I stepped forward. "Get out, I'll finish it." He didn't argue, just handed me the key. The rest of the team retreated while I dug in. The system bit at me. Firewalls, memory spikes, counter AIs. It wasn't code, it was war in data form. My hands shook, my eyes burned, but I pushed. And then it happened. The code opened. The Nemesis drive activated. Across the planet, lights flickered. Alarms died. Drones froze mid-air. Ships in orbit lost control and began spinning off course. I smiled. Then I heard them coming. The Council's elite guards. They didn't run. They floated, hovered like specters in robes laced with plasma. There were 4, maybe 5. I didn't try to fight. No point. I uploaded a final burst to the Phoenix net, a video, a message, Salvarian is burning. The council is bleeding. Earth remembers. They struck. Pain lanced through me, but I didn't scream. I just laughed. Because they thought they'd won by killing me. But out in space, on 100 ships, in 1,000 mines, humanity was moving. And now, with their core broken, their power fading, and the truth screaming louder than ever, we were coming. Not for peace, not for forgiveness, but for judgment. The Dominion's heart was bleeding. Salvarian's silence echoed louder than any scream. With the Nemesis drive activated, their command systems were crashing one by one. Ships lost navigation, satellites spun out of sync, automated defenses turned inward, attacking friendly craft or going completely dark. The Dominion called it the collapse. We called it justice. Word spread fast. Rebellion erupted across systems that had been too afraid to resist before. Slave colonies overthrew their overseers. Corporate trade hubs declared neutrality. Even certain council-affiliated worlds, the ones who'd always claimed they disagreed quietly with Dominion methods, started removing their banners and pretending they'd never cheered when Earth fell. But we remembered. Humanity didn't come to rebuild alliances. We came to finish this. Commander Thorne, now operating from the ARC flagship Iron Memory, issued what would become our final directive, Operation Revenant. The goal was clear. The Dominion had one last fallback stronghold, a mobile command fortress called the Zephyrian Arc, a moon-sized battle station with the last standing council members, thousands of elite soldiers, and a weapons platform strong enough to glass entire continents. They built it in secret decades ago. The endgame, their insurance. It became our target. Every rebel ship, every stolen cruiser, every half-working war drone was rallied under one banner. The broken banner became a real fleet, ugly, scarred, chaotic, and ready to burn the sky. I wasn't supposed to be there. They thought I was dead. When Bishop and the surviving team returned from the Heartspire mission, they said I was lost, vaporized. But I wasn't. Somehow I survived. Half-burned, lungs shredded, one eye gone. But I woke up days later in a derelict lab under the Salvarian ruins. An old human refugee was scavenging tech. Found my body, kept me alive with duct tape, synthetic lungs, and stubbornness. I owed him everything. His name was Eric. Never asked for thanks. Just handed me a rifle the moment I could stand again. "You've still got work to do," he said. I rejoined the fleet just as it reached the outer range of the Zephyrian Arc. I expected protocol, strategy. Instead, I found chaos, an army of humans and outcasts driven by fury. There were no speeches, no medals, no plan beyond one goal: get inside that fortress and destroy the council. The Zephyrian Arc looked like a dead world, a giant sphere of iron and bone orbiting a gas giant. But it breathed. It moved. It carried weapons no one had ever seen: singularity cannons, starfire rails, quantum mines. As the fleet approached, Dominion defenses activated. The first hour of combat was pure madness. Beams sliced through space like blades. Entire squadrons vanished. Hulls melted. Plasma clouded every corridor. We boarded anyway. Drop pods ripped through the hull like steel fangs. I was in the fourth wave, leading a squad of men who barely knew each other's names. Didn't matter. We knew what we were here for. Inside, it was a labyrinth. The corridors pulsed with red light. Dominion soldiers came at us in waves. We fought with instinct, grenades, blades, fists. I saw Linux again. Somehow the bastard had survived his wounds. He grinned through the blood. "Told you not to stop." We pushed toward the council chamber. That's when we heard it. A voice, software mocking. Familiar. "You finally arrived. Look how far you've fallen." Tethri won. The AI wasn't dead. Not really. Part of it had survived and been uploaded to the Ark. This was its final node, its last defense. It projected a hologram. Our fallen cities, our dead children, our war crimes spliced into Dominion propaganda. Humanity, it said, has become what it hated. I stepped forward. Good. I raised my rifle and fired. The AI core sparked, twisted, and died with a shriek. Behind it, the council chamber opened. 10 thrones, 10 cowards draped in gold and lies. The oldest one, tall, thin, with black eyes like oil, stood. "You can't survive without us," he said. "We kept balance. Without us, you will become the monsters we tried to prevent." I looked at him, then at the men beside me. Every scar, every loss, every grave in the soil of Earth. "No," I said. "We already were monsters. You just helped us remember why." Then we opened fire. We didn't stop until every throne was empty. After that, we triggered the overload. The Zephyrian Ark shook. From orbit, it looked like a sun being born, fire blooming outward in slow, bright death. We escaped barely. The war was over, not because they surrendered, because there was no one left to keep the lie alive. Humanity returned home, to ash, to ruins, to Earth. But we didn't rebuild the old world. We built something else. A new code, a memory, not of what we lost, but what we became when the universe pushed us too far. And etched across every monument, every ship, every blade forged from the bones of war, were the same words. "You wanted to see our limits? Here they come." Victory tastes like ash when it costs everything. The war was over, at least on the surface. The Dominion's power was shattered, their fleets scattered, their command broken. But the silence left in its place was heavier than any battlefield roar. We stood on the ruins of victory, not sure who we were anymore. Earth was still standing, but barely. The cities hadn't been rebuilt. They were mostly burned-out husks or half-functioning military zones. The survivors didn't cheer. They didn't throw parades. They walked through the rubble with quiet stares, holding on to what little they had left. Sometimes a child, sometimes a memory, sometimes just a reason to keep going. I'd returned to what used to be Boston, my birthplace. The skyline was gone, replaced by shattered buildings and ash-coated streets. I walked through them with Linux, the only one from Black Ember still alive besides me. We didn't speak much. Words felt thin compared to the weight in our bones. "You think it was worth it?" he asked one day, standing beside the crumbled remains of a monument. "I think it used to be a museum. Now it was just concrete and weeds." "Depends," I said. "Worth what?" He didn't answer. Didn't have to. A few days later, Thorne called a summit. Not a government, not a council, just a gathering. Survivors, commanders, colony leaders, free world reps. No suits, no titles, just warriors. We met in the remains of the old UN complex, symbolic in the way irony always is. Thorne stood at the head, older now, scarred. His voice rasped like gravel, but it still carried weight like thunder. "We won," he said, "but we're not done." Everyone leaned in. "The galaxy will test us again. They'll fear us, resent us. Some will try to rebuild the old order. Others will want us to become it." He paused, looked around the room. "But we didn't fight to replace our chains with different ones. We fought so our sons could live with choices, so our daughters wouldn't have to burn just to be heard. We fought to remind the stars that pain has a memory, and it remembers us now." Someone stood, an older man from one of the Saturn colonies. "And what now?" "We govern the galaxy?" "No," Thorne said. We survive it, and if necessary, we end it." The room went silent. And in that silence, something changed. We realized we weren't building an empire. We were becoming something worse. A warning. A living reminder that when you push humanity too far, it doesn't snap. It sharpens. Months passed. I tried to return to a normal life. Whatever that meant now. I settled in the Greenland Free Zone. Quiet, cold. No patrols, no noise, just wind and sky. I worked with salvage crews, restoring old tech, keeping out of trouble. But trouble has a way of remembering your name. One night, I got a message. Encrypted, no origin tag. One line, "The sparks didn't die. They just moved." I knew what it meant. The remnants of the Dominion weren't gone, just buried. In the outer sectors there were whispers, secret meetings, trade ships carrying Dominion tech, old officials suddenly vanishing. Someone was rebuilding. I took it to Linux. He'd started a militia by then, training survivors to protect colonies, run security, keep order. "They're trying to rise again," I told him. He nodded slowly. "Then we bury them deeper." So we left. No banners, no armies. Just a handful of men who'd seen what happened when evil hides behind silence. We tracked a signal trail to the Vordran Drift, an old Dominion research zone now abandoned. Or so it seemed. Inside, we found a hidden lab. Tanks filled with cloned hybrids, Dominion tech fused with stolen human DNA. They weren't just rebuilding their army, they were trying to perfect it, make it stronger, faster, immune to what they called the human flaw. Emotion. They wanted soldiers without mercy, killers without memory. We burned it all. Took 2 days, explosives in every corridor. Left one survivor, an old scientist who'd worked on the original mind wipe programs during the Dominion's reign. I asked him why they kept going. His eyes were dull, empty. "You showed us what humans are truly capable of," he said. "You terrified the stars. And now, everyone wants to copy the monster." I didn't respond, just pulled the trigger. Back on Earth, things were changing too fast. The colonies were splintering. Some wanted independence, others demanded Earth's leadership. New political factions rose daily. Some wanted to keep fighting, preemptively strike other potential threats. Others wanted peace, even if it meant vulnerability. There was no unity. Only the memory of war keeping things glued together, and memories fade. That's when Thorn disappeared. No warning, no message, just gone. Some said he went into exile. Others claimed he was assassinated by hardliners who thought he'd gone soft. Nobody really knew. What we did know was this: without him, everything started to fray. And fast. The Earth Federation Council, formed in the vacuum of power, began imposing strict protocols, surveillance, defense drafts, mandatory colony registration. "We must protect what we earned," they said. But we'd heard that line before, and some of us weren't ready to trade one master for another. Linux and I watched it unfold with tightening jaws. "They're becoming the Dominion," he whispered one night as we sat near a fire on the outskirts of Old Berlin. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, and we helped build it." We both knew what had to happen next. We formed the Vigil. Not a resistance, not an army, just a network of fighters, thinkers, engineers, people who remembered the cost of blind obedience. We weren't trying to rule, just to remind the new powers that we were watching, that if they crossed the same line the Dominion did, they'd meet the same end. At first it was subtle, exposing corruption, blocking forced conscriptions, warning colonies when Federation agents crossed the line. Then they started calling us terrorists. Funny how fast history repeats. But this time, we had the scars, and the guns, and in all of it one truth remained, one line burned into every fighter's soul, one sentence that echoed through the darkness whenever the stars grew too quiet. You wanted to see our limits? Here they come. The sky was quiet again. Not peaceful. Just quiet. The kind of silence that comes after too much screaming. The kind that wraps around your ribs and settles in your lungs like old smoke. Years had passed since the war ended. The Dominion was gone, but its shadow lingered, in broken systems, in abandoned weapons, in minds that had forgotten what life felt like before everything was scorched. Earth had changed. The cities were rebuilding, new metal over old scars. Colonies had stabilized, trade resumed, technology flourished again. They said it was a golden age. But for men like me, it never really ended. I lived outside the grid, off record. I'd seen too much to smile at neon lights and artificial sunrises. I stayed in the ruins of old Seattle, alone, quiet. My knees hurt. My lungs still rasped from the burn damage. My hands shook in the cold. I'd aged twice as fast since Selverian. Didn't matter. I wasn't meant to grow old, not really. I was one of those men you don't build monuments for. The ones whose faces get lost in dust and blood and radio static. The kind who haunt victory, not decorate it. One day I heard boots crunching through the snow. Didn't even lift my rifle. I knew who it was before I saw him. Linux. He looked worse than me. Half blind in one eye now, limping from a hip wound that never healed right. But he still had that fire behind the bitterness. Still walked like someone who could end a world if you asked him nicely. He sat without speaking, pulled out a flask and took a sip, passed it to me. I drank. The silence between us was thicker than the air. "They're forming a Galactic Council," he said after a while. Again. I nodded. Different faces? Same throne? "They say this one will be fair, balanced, based on mutual respect." I smirked. "They said that last time." He didn't argue. We stared at the horizon where the wind blew ash across old bones. "They want us to join," he said finally. "Earth?" He shook his head. "You, me, the Vigil." I turned to him. "Why?" "To make them feel safe. To give them the illusion that we're part of it, that we won't burn it down again." I didn't respond. He looked at me, his voice low, hoarse. "I'm tired, brother." "Aren't we all? I don't know how to live in peace." I looked at my hands, scarred, bent, still calloused from weapons I hadn't held in years. "Maybe peace isn't for men like us," I said. "Then who is it for?" I stared out at the ruins. "The ones who can forget?" They offered me a seat, one of the honorary founders of the new Galactic Accord. All smiles, polished words, hollow praise. I went once. Stood in a hall built from crystal and glass, filled with delegates who never tasted war, never buried friends, never woke screaming. They clapped when I entered. I didn't clap back. They asked me to speak. I walked to the podium, looked out at their shining faces, their clean uniforms, their eager smiles. And I told them this. You were never afraid of our violence. You were afraid of our memory. You were afraid that one day someone would return the pain you buried in laws and treaties and fake peace. You feared we would survive the darkness long enough to light a fire in it. Well, we did. And that fire is still burning. You think it's over. But the truth is, humanity's war never ends. It just waits. So govern your stars, build your alliances, pass your laws, But never forget. You wanted to see our limits. You're still seeing them. They didn't clap after that. I never went back. The years crept slower after that. The vigil dissolved. Or maybe it just went deeper underground. I stopped hearing from Linux. Some said he died quietly in a Mars hospital. Others claimed he disappeared into the dark sectors to stop the rise of a new threat before anyone even knew it existed. I chose to believe the second one. It felt more honest. As for me, I stayed in the shadows, helped where I could, taught a few kids how to survive, how to think, how to question what peace looks like when it's wearing the same armor as tyranny. They called me a relic, a ghost. Sometimes they called me a monster. And maybe I was. But I never let them forget that Earth remembers, that we survived everything, that when we were broken, we sharpened, that when the stars turned their backs on us, we burned our own path through the void. And that we never, ever stopped keeping score. My final days came quietly. No alarms, no battles, just the cold creeping up my spine one night under a rusted dome of stars. I didn't fight it. I just sat, back against the old wall, rifle across my lap, and smiled at the memory of men I'd bled beside. Ronan calculations, Reeks, Linux, Thorn, all gone now, but not forgotten. They lived in every scar the galaxy still carried, in every whisper spoken between free men in quiet corners of rebuilt colonies, and on every gravestone marked by survivors with trembling hands and full hearts. They lived in the fire, and the fire lives on. So if you're reading this, years from now, centuries maybe, if you're wondering who we were, know this: we were the voice they tried to silence, the rage they tried to cage, the storm they thought they could control. But most of all, we were the proof that humanity's worst trait isn't its violence, it's its memory. We never forget. Not the pain, not the betrayal, and not the promise we made to a galaxy that thought we'd stay on our knees. You wanted to see our limits? You never even scratched the surface.